Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I have some concerns because I can recall your immediate predecessor sitting here, and he said almost exactly the same thing that you said about the budget, that they would not spend a dollar more. And yet, we received such drastic cuts that you've heard Mr. Engel speak about and other members. So I'm worried about that aspect of it. I also, when preparing for this hearing, I couldn't help but go back and I looked at some videotape. And the videotape was actually of you, Mr. Secretary, and the attitude that you had about a predecessor. You didn't give her any courtesy when Secretary Hillary Clinton was sitting in a seat before the Benghazi Committee, and you scolded her. You went after her with venom. I couldn't believe the tape when I saw it, and you basically went after her about the QDDR report, which you said only included 2 pages of diplomatic security. You then said and implied and said clearly that meant that the report had no balance, and therefore there was no diplomacy. Security was only mentioned a few times, and so the insinuation was that therefore the secretary was not interested in diplomatic security. That came from your mouth at that time, at that testimony. So I went back and I looked at your testimony, Mr. Secretary, when you were before the Senate for confirmation. I waited patiently here listening to your testimony here today, Mr. Secretary. I have not heard you mention one single time about diplomatic security. Not once. Not once. And then, I know at the time, and I would try not to play, I'm with my colleague playing politics across but we're here on our soil, so I think we've got to get to the facts of the matter. And on the facts of the matter, we heard the majority leader, Kevin McCarthy, at the time say that it was about bringing Hillary Clinton down. And so I hear that maybe giving you the benefit of the doubt, if it wasn't about bringing Hillary Clinton down at the time, then I ask you, Mr. Secretary, should we conclude that because you've not mentioned it one time, not once, should conclude based upon that fact that you do not care about diplomatic security, Mr. Secretary? Haven't heard it from you. Not once.
No. You should not conclude that.
I'll take you at your word.
I may respond.
I'll take you at your word. You said no, I take you at your word.
But I feel like I need at least a few.
I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to take you at your word. You'll have time. I'm going to take you at your word.
You should know
because I happen to agree with you.
The briefing I received as a nominee was from the head of diplomatic security.
Mr. Secretary, framing my time, Mr. Secretary, I happen to agree with you.
Was from the head of diplomatic.
You
should know that I'm diligently working on.
I happen to agree with you, Mr. Secretary.
I take diplomatic security very serious. Never make an accusation.
I happen to agree with you. No, not a real secretary is coming out.
If I could just